Hello, gentlemen. I was able to finalize the UVs for this column right here, and thanks to Kenny Lammers, he was able to help me out improve the Thorns section of this. So if you actually press 5, you'll be able to see all the islands of the procedural UVs, and none of them are overlaying to each other. You're also able to see a little bit of, if you go to visualizers, see a little bit of the UV distortion on that guy. For some reason it's not showing right now, so let me see if that actually updates it. Save as default. No, it's not showing right now, I don't know why. Another thing that I did was I added a UV check. So you're able to UV check your mesh, and you're able to see if the pixel ratio is actually good or not on them, and see if they're close to each other. You're able to create attributes in order to scale or make them a little bit more close to each other if you wanted to. I give a range of like 25% or so, and that seems to be fine for me. And if you see in the material itself, you don't even notice the fact of that at all. I mean, it's pretty good for what it is, especially being a procedural mesh. Another thing I did was, I think I showed this to you guys the last video. You're able to bring this to be pristine or not, and not have any sort of cracked or issue or anything like that. This makes things much cheaper. So if I just turn the Thorns off, this is basically what this is. So if I actually go to the base, at lip, I'm able to increase the size of that faster, and all the UVs follow really well without a problem. And it's just so much easier to play around with this without having to rely on having the 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 all the details going on. So if like I go here on the wireframe, I'm able to see how much of the transformation am I making, and you can see that actually other ones follow just fine. If I want to change the profile ramp of that, like right there, it just changes for me. So it's a little bit faster in order to work, because if I actually make sure that it go back to the procedural part, it's a little bit harsh for us to see those things, because it's doing a lot of calculation through on the background in order to create that. All right, so let's show a little bit more of the material side of things. I created a Vertex Viewer. Some people asked me that on Facebook, basically to see how can I manage to create vertex colors, so I'm able to export this to my engine. So the things that I created was I'm able to actually choose the color that I want. So for example, red, I'm able to smooth that color out or not if I wanted to. So if I want a little bit more smoother or not. I want to be able to get the minimum value. So if like I smooth this out, I want to get the max value to go higher, being lower, or if I want to get a little bit less of that color change on my red channel. I can go to the green channel and do the same thing. So if like I want to smooth it out, get and clamp that guy off as much as possible. The green channel, I'm actually making this for the worn edges, as you can see, all surrounding the parts of the worn edges. The spikes are getting a lot because basically the spikes, I wouldn't choose vertex colors for those guys at all. I would just leave it be, and not have any sort of vertex colors. I'm able to actually tweak that and leave the Thorns group or even the spike group off of that. Let's go to the blue channel. The blue channel is basically the normal coming up from north, from the top. So they call it that as snow mask. You're also able to clamp that if you wanted to. Just get the blue values. You're also able to invert it if you wanted to as well, which is really nice. So if I smooth this out, get like a really nice range of things if you wanted to, and it makes in a lot of use for any game developer to have that possibility of playing around with those colors. So if I go there and check them all of them exist and they're there, and you're able to export your FBX and you should be good. Let's go back to our material. The other thing that I created, I was able to go to Thorns thanks to Kenny Lammers. Maybe I mentioned him again already, but basically he helped me find out a way of how to create those thorns in a more natural growth. Um, uh, Uses a line distance function inside Houdini, and it's so much better because it actually really follows what's going on, and it gets the edges through a path of a volumetric path, and I'm able to create that guy much easier. So if I go over here and I decrease the resolution. Basically, if I go up, you're gonna see less of the poly count going through. But if I go lower, you're gonna see more and more of the resolution happening right there. But it gets really, really heavy, so you just gotta be careful with it, okay? Another thing is I have a decimation of the mesh itself, so if I want a little bit more variation on the mesh, I'm able to decimate the mesh that is behind of those curves, and it just gives me way more variation through those thorns. The growth still exists and still appears, so you're going to be able to go down there and see what the growth happens. And all the views are following, guys, like there's no change on that. So if I actually go really close to this, the growth itself, if I go down, all the UVs are there. Let me go to the UV check so you guys can actually see this a little bit more. As you can see, oops, I pressed the thickness by mistake. The growth itself, like all the UVs are just going up without a problem. And all almost real-time based and much easier to see what's going on. I also created a little ramp for the thorn thickness ramp. So if I go over here at the bottom of the thickness, it goes a little bit less thick. If I want like really bulgy thorns on the bottom, I'm able to do that as well. You're able to increase the range of where those thorns go outside or not if you wanted to, and you're totally able to do that by having a sort of like an invisible ground surrounding that guy, and it makes much sense to do that. So you actually have a global thickness over here as well. You're able to play around with it if you wanted to. And if you see the mesh for, let me go to the UV check. If you see the mesh for the thorns, at the moment we have profile divisions of 3. I ended up creating a little thing where you're able to bring the profile divisions to 6 if you wanted to. And all the UVs are fine. Even if I actually make the thickness a little bit larger, the UVs follow and they don't distort as much. Okay. So let me see if there's anything else to show here. Oh yeah, the spikes height. If you're able to play around with that if you wanted to. The columns, I ended up creating a little bit better piece amount break up top down. So if I go down on that, the pieces there on the top, they're a little bit more worn. They have some sort of a clumpness to them, and they are a little bit smaller on the top. So if I go up right here, you're gonna able to see. Let me take the lighting off of over there, so it has a little bit of more clumpiness in there, and you're able to play around with that if you wanted to. Just keep going down, and it gives that sense of unorganized sort of pieces on the top of the edge right there. One thing to notice, lighting is really heavy if you actually have shadows and ambient occlusion going on inside Houdini. So be aware that you do not want to have, if you're doing a lot of the stuff that you need to, you want to make sure that you create previews for yourself. Or for example, if I'm not working with the Thorns, turn that off. Don't play around with the Thorns. If I'm only playing with the basic shapes of the mesh, just make sure that you go to the pristine, turn off the Thorns, and do whatever you want, and then later on come back and see what you can do to make sure that you have whatever you want. So this is pretty much what I wanted to show. There's one more thing that I noticed is I ended up using point normals through all my graph. I changed instead of vertex normals to point normals. One of the reasons why is really painful for you to transfer your attributes in between color to vertex normals later on, or vice versa, whenever you want to put vertex colors in. So this is the reason why I have my point normals working that way. You're able to, at the end of the graph, whenever you're done with everything, then whenever you have your groups, then you actually make sure that you bring your vertex normals on, and that should not give you any issues on your colors per se. Let me see if there's anything else that I could show you. Oh yeah, so like I have these material channels right here. I'm not sure if this works in Unreal or not, but you are able to change your materials if you want to. So basically, if I want to have the Thorns material to, because I have some materials here, and do the base lip for that, I'm able to do that as well. So those are the channels that I have here, and I'm able to keep creating channels as I go for. This is a HDA file. I'm able to transform this into OTL, export this to an engine, and maybe that's the next step of what I'm gonna go for. So if I actually wanted to have another column in this world, I am able to multiply this guy. Okay, it takes a little while because he has to recalculate everything. So now I have two of the columns. I'm able to transform that guy, send it off to perhaps -5 or something like that. I don't know, like -10 maybe. Let me just take this circle off. And if let me put a regular lighting right here because we're not being able to see anything. If I go to this column right now, I have a bunch of different changes that I can do. So let's just say right now, if I go to the column, I want this column to be lower on the amount, or have less Thorns growth, and there you go. It just makes much more sense to play around with that kind of stuff. If you have like little pieces like that hanging on your mesh, there is on the column itself, on the breaking, there's delete small pieces. So if it's a little threshold that you're able to play around with it, and just to find out which one you want to. You should find soon as you go through it, and there you go, it deletes the little small pieces. So now I'm able to go back to the nice lighting and see what's going on with the whole thing. Let me just bring the spot and make sure that the spot shows both of them. This is pretty much it. And oh yeah, a reminder, at the base itself, As you can see, the lip itself, both of them have the same kind of lip, right? I'm able to just go and seed. It should actually work. I'm not sure why it's not working. Let's see if the corner resolution changes anything. Am I choosing the right one or not? I can't remember exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it just changes the cuts of what you want to do. I think the seed is it's broken. I need to fix that right now. Later on I will fix that. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to show. I hope you like to see what I have here, and please send me feedback if you need to, and if you want to see something different, let me know. Thank you so much. Have a good one. Bye bye.